I know what I can talk about. It's nothing new, but I've been watching a lot of them, and it's worth talking about because on Disney Plus, I've been working my way through all of the 30 for 30s
Mm.
on Disney
ESPN,
Plus.
right?
Yeah, because there's a bunch of them on Disney Plus, and they are so good. Like they have a really cool way of like using sports as a background to talk about a whole bunch of other stuff at the same time, and they take it really becomes about the interpersonal stories of whatever the subject is. Like the one I'm watching right now is a little more, I will say this, the one that I'm watching right now is a little bit more, if you're a football fan, you'll enjoy it, and I'm not. So I'm making my way through it, but it's a little sloggy. It just talks about like the 1983 NFL draft, which is proving to be this ludicrous thing, but it had like John Elway was in it and Eric Dickerson, and like it was
Yeah, yeah.
just like this huge draft, and there's all this stuff with the USFL. So I'm watching it and it's good, but it is definitely one that if you're a football fan, you'll love it. But the one that kind of got me, I don't want to say hooked back into it, but like the first one I watched that I went, oh shit, was they do an episode about the whole Duke lacrosse rape thing
Mm.
from earlier in the 2000s. And this was just before the whole Me Too time, and
Yeah.
it's very interesting because the way they do it so well, because it's, spoiler, these this Duke lacrosse team um was charged with, like, three of the guys on the team were charged with rape of a stripper. They hired like a stripper for a party and this and that. Spoiler, she lied, and they didn't, and like these guys didn't actually rape, but they canceled that. Like Duke is considered the Harvard of the South, and it was like there's
Mhm.
Duke basketball, and then on the West Coast is Duke men's lacrosse. And at that time, they were um like, it was they were number two always. They lost in the NCAA championship the year before, but the year that this takes place was their year. This was going to be their year. These guys were all working towards this and everything else. It's They just do the documentary so well, because you're watching it, and all the way through they've got it going where you're like, oh shit, these guys did this. Like, I noticed, and then all of a sudden, just like it does in real life, it turns on a dime when something changes. And it's really bad because, like, the guy, like the district attorney who was prosecuting it, basically kind of obfuscated and withheld evidence on some DNA stuff that he tested. Like, none of so there was like a weird, like, they were able to get a partial match on DNA for this one guy of the three. Um, and then it goes up to this whole point where the arraignment, and it goes through, and it gets, the DNA gets tested again, and that's when he gets his partial. And then all of a sudden it turns, and it flips, and you start finding out about how this guy actually withheld this because the defense starts to analyze it. And then they go, okay, so this is going to trial, let's set up our defense. All of a sudden they've got cell phone records. These three dudes weren't even in the house when the rape allegedly took place. But they found all sorts of DNA on this girl, and it's a tragic tale for her, but she, and it sounds bad, you never want to victim blame, but she, like, she's got a lot of mental illness in her past. Yes, she was going to college and building a life for herself and or something like that, but she, very much was like, once you start to look a little bit more at her, you go, oh shit, these guys weren't lying. And it's a big deal because Duke, there's a real feeling. There's like the town of Durham, and you've got Duke in Durham, and it's very much like that, like towny slash college thing. You've got, like the two classes. So, the prosecutor was really going after it because there was she, of course, unfortunately was not unfortunately, stupid choice of words, but she was a young African American woman, this young black girl. So it also became about race.
Mm.
instantly, because now it's you've got these three white lacrosse players who are seemingly going to get away with this, because in the beginning it also does look like they get away with it, and they do this. It's just so well done because they do this very good job of really making you not necessarily dislike these guys, but just the way that the case actually went in the media and in the town, it like ramps up, your kind of dislike, and then you're like, oh shit, actually, yeah, these guys are douchey lacrosse players, but they didn't do this, and they're actually not that bad of guys, when it comes down to it. And it's just really well done, and there's a bunch of them, like one for our Bay Area people that I love. They do one on the World Series, the Battle of the Bay, the night that we had the Loma
The
Prieta
earthquake.
earthquake.
Yeah.
Yeah, so they use that backdrop of the game as the story of Loma Prieta, and it's actually probably one of the best documentaries about the earthquake that I've ever seen. Because there's not that much. I don't want to say sports in it, but it's using sports as the backdrop. And then there are some that are definitely like incredibly definitely like sports based. Like there's one that's all about the Detroit Bad Boy Pistons.
Yeah.
That
Yeah.
was my basketball team at that time. That Okay, here's one for the sports people. If anybody are listening, this whole like debate about whether LeBron is the greatest, is the goat, or it's Michael Jordan. Uh, I would submit that there isn't a team in the NBA right now that could hang with the physicality of any of the teams from that era, because
Yeah.
that
Yeah.
was at the height of it, because it then dropped off, and it turned, and the physicality, it was there, but it wasn't the same, and it's building back up again to the point where you got a lot of guys that flop. But dude, I'm sorry, you take the Lakers right now with LeBron on them and you play like the 92 Pistons.
Oh yeah. It'd be brutal. It'd be brutal.
Bill Laimbeer's taken out fucking two power forwards before he gets ejected from the game.
Dude wore a face mask so he could just mess people up.
Yeah,
Like
yeah.
different. It's just a different era. Like if you look at we're obviously not a sports podcast, but when you look at the fouls the dude took in the 80s and 90s,
Huh.
like they legit went flying or they legit got knocked to the ground. Like it was like they were like hammer throws to the shoulders. Like
Yeah.
when you got fouled in the 80s, 90s, you got fucking fouled. Like there are some shots that Jordan made coming off of a foul that I don't
Oh
think
yeah.
anybody can
No.
make.
No.
And so Jordan going to the basket in the ways that he did, at the height of his career was ridiculous. I don't think anybody, and that for me, it's not about all the stats. You can put all the stats up and compare Kobe and LeBron and
Yeah.
Jordan and say,
Rings and everything
whatever.
else.
But the stuff that Jordan physically did,
Huh.
like tell me that jump from the top of the key where he fucking dunked isn't a dude actually flying through the air. Like
Yeah.
he was
No,
unreal,
yeah.
unreal.
Yeah,
And
and that's
and now when the guys get like I hate watching basketball because they're such little drama
ugh,
queens when they get fouled. They're like
I
ah,
know.
and they go flying, and
It's
you're just like
so bad.
it's
I'm
not
like, well, it's like,
impressive.
yeah, I know. It's like, did you guys never watch game tape of like the 85 Celtics and Lakers series?
Yeah, yeah,
I mean, the Celtics were just literally out there trying to beat the Lakers up. Like that's all it was. Danny Ainge, Robert Parrish, like all those guys. Like that was
yeah.
ugly. So I don't, yeah, like you hear, because I hear that complaints about how physical the game is now, and I'm like, what?
No,
When is it? Like it was way more physical to me back when we were much younger than it is now.
I mean, granted, you have guys that are like Shaq that are 7 foot tall and 300 pounds of dude, which you did not have back then. Like Dikembe
No, but
Mutombo was the
he,
first like giant dude, right? Like,
yeah,
and he
yeah,
weighed
because you
like
had,
74 pounds.
well, no, well, but that's the thing, is you had up until Shaq, really. I mean, you did have some guys that were in those
Mhm.
low sevens that did have a body, but your big men were like the big guys out of Houston: Ralph Sampson, Akeem Olajuwon, Ralph Peterson, um, and Manute Bol. Like, yeah, they were these tall guys, but they were long and lanky,
Yeah,
and all of a sudden, Shaq, this kid Shaq comes out, and yeah, I mean, okay, so we had like some Patrick Ewings, and I'm not saying that like
Oh
all
yeah,
the
yeah,
guys,
yeah,
but
yeah, yeah.
the majority of your big, your tall centers were these like lanky dudes that would like lope down the court. All of a sudden, then you got Shaq, and you got this dude who's like just built like a fucking truck.
Yeah, he
He's
can't do
seven
anything with him.
plus.
Yeah, he can't do anything with
He's
him.
and he can run the court at the
Can't
same
shoot
time.
for
So
shit, but
yeah, and so you've got that, and so Shaq actually came up in some of that early in that like Kobe era. Like, I mean, Kobe was the like, I mean, obviously, but that kind of middle era in between like the Jordan times,
mm-hmm.
like when you had like the Magic all of a sudden showed up with Penny Hardaway
Yep,
and
yep.
this, and you had some stuff with the Spurs in there where I think there was a change in the game then, but it's swung back the other direction. And yeah, guys are a little more physical, but dudes flop like German soccer players now.
Oh yeah, oh yeah,
Like it's bad. Like you look at some of the, like you were just saying, you look at some of the hits. It comes like a guy comes down and it's like not even touched and he falls down.
yeah, yeah, yeah.
And
It's
it's like,
all
oh,
acting.
okay.
Like it's yeah,
Yeah. Like there was a TikTok that I saw that was really funny that just shows the difference between the two styles of play.
yep.
And so you've got LeBron that's how LeBron tries to get a foul out of the ref, right?
Mm-hmm.
Falls down, draws it that way. You see Michael after a play pops up and the ref's right there, and Michael goes, "Yeah, he got me on that one." And the ref goes, "He got you, Michael?" Again, and he blew the whistle and gave Michael the foul because Michael Jordan said that he got him.
Yeah,
Like it's just a different way of play, a different level of respect. But yeah, anyway, 30 for 30, there's a bunch of them and they're all over the place with what they cover. And they're a lot of fun. They can be good background noise because you can kind of dip in and out if you need to, like, but there's a lot of really cool stories. And sports in and of itself is inherently dramatic. That's what makes sports movies, even if you're not a sports fan, so friggin' good. Like you don't have to like football to absolutely love Remember the Titans.
oh for sure, for sure, for
you
sure.
know like you do have to be an Oliver Stone fan to like Any Given Sunday, but
That's a whole other animal.
that's a crazy movie. Like I go back and watch it. I always thought about that as a football movie, and you only remember like the inches
Yeah, yeah,
speech that he gives and that stuff. But you go back and watch that movie. I mean, visually, it's just fucking out there.
yeah, yeah.
First, with what Oliver Stone does, you're like, okay, so you and Aaron Sorkin were doing mushrooms when you were fucking scripting this out and storyboarding it,
Right.
obviously. Um, but it's a kooky movie, and there's a lot to that story that I always forget. Jamie Foxx, such a better actor even back then than I think he was getting credit for.
Yeah,
Like,
for sure.
but yeah, so that's really what I've been watching of note. It's nothing new, but definitely check out. And there's, like I said, there's a bunch of them, and they're fun, and you don't have to be like way into sports to like them because they all wind up being human stories
Yeah,
about the humanity behind all of this, which is kind of what makes it cool. Like another good one, even if you don't know who the fuck he is, and then I'll wrap this, then I'll wrap with the 30 for 30s. But they do a whole episode on Christian Leitner,
okay.
and you actually, when you listen to this dude and you hear people talk about him, you're like, oh shit, I remember Christian Leitner, and I remember
Mm-hmm.
everybody saying he was a dick. And yeah, he kind of was, but this dude actually just loved playing basketball. But
Yeah,
but he was only, once he got to the NBA, he was really only a middling kind of
yeah. He was around
talent.
for a long time, but he wasn't the best player. But he was at a Duke too, wasn't he?
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. Oh yeah. Yeah, he was hated. He's one of the major reasons Duke continues to be hated today still for some reason. Somehow
Yeah, well,
nobody's Duke,
yeah. I remember that era.
The Harvard of the South. Oh yeah.
Yep, yep, yep.
There's always Duke and UNC. Oh man.
Yeah, yeah, yeah. So okay. Well, with that, I will go on to something silly, I think. I watched Based on a True Story on Peacock. And
I'm
this
so I'm
is,
s- yeah.
yeah, this is Kaylee Cuoco and Chris Messina. And they have a solid little cast around it, but they're really solid. I think I was a little duped by the trailer because when I was watching the trailer, it really gave me this feel of like the flight attendant. Because if you ever watch the flight
Okay.
attendant, like a bunch of stuff happens in her head, and the way they market the show, it looks kind of like that too. But ultimately, I think it's more like Christina Applegate's Dead to Me.
Okay.
Maybe a
Okay.
hair lighter in tone, but that same idea. Um, but yeah, that's more of what it reminds me of because all those things that we saw in the trailer that um felt like the like inside her head in the flight attendant, those are just
Yeah.
dream sequences in this.
Okay.
So, rather than her popping into her own head and doing stuff, it works kind of in the same way, but it's a dream sequence instead. And it's not, to me, doesn't actually have the same impact because in the flight attendant, those things that are happening in her head are actually happening to her in some form or fashion. Like she's having this internal debate with herself and,
Right.
fighting with herself. And in this, it's just like, here's something exciting that didn't actually happen. There are all these like fantasy sequences that you're watching, you're thinking it's happening, and then it bounces back to what actually happened, and it's less exciting. So I don't know if that always worked, but yeah. So in that regard, a little sketchy on, but overall, I mean, the show it's like a chaotic good time. Like it's
Okay.
these people are outclassed in what they're doing because the whole gist of it is um, that she's a huge murder podcast fan, right?
Right.
And
Yeah.
which is obviously if you're in a podcast, you're a total nerd. So, um, but yeah, so she's into the murder podcasts. Her life is kind of falling apart. Her husband, Chris Messina, is a former tennis star. Hurt his knee or something like that, blew out his knee, and so he's become a coach at the local tennis place. And now he's being replaced because he's old. He's like in his 40s or whatever, right? So he just doesn't have it anymore. And so now they're both kind of in life. They're kind of in this stagnant position where work isn't really going their way. She's a real estate agent that can't sell anything. And, stuff's going to shit. And they figure out who this serial killer is that everybody's talking about and nobody can grasp, but they know who he is. And I mean, they give it away in the first episode, but I don't want to say who it is because the commercials don't tell you who it is.
Yeah.
Um, so
Yeah. No,
I
I appreciate that. This one I'm actually gonna watch.
dude,
Like
it's a
it's
quick watch. So the first episode's 45 minutes, but every episode after that's like 22 to 25 minutes.
okay.
So I,
Okay. So
I
you burn
literally
through.
watched it in a day. I watched the entire thing in a day. It's only 8 episodes, I think. So it goes real fast. It goes
Okay.
real
Oh, I
fast if you
do.
want to get through it. And I mean, like really, when you start to figure out what the dream sequences are and aren't, the show itself becomes a little predictable. Like it's not genius. It's not a brilliant show. But it's carried very much by Kaylee Cuoco and Chris Messina. They're great. I
Good.
think
Lots of good chemistry.
lots of good chemistry and just good work by them. I think she is
Okay.
doing her best work now
Oh yeah.
than even when she was on Big Bang. Like she was great on Big Bang, and as the show went on, she got better and better. But she's doing her best work outside of Penny.
Yeah,
Um,
no, I think Kaylee Cuoco is like actually becoming a notable actress. She's
I
not
think
just a
so. Yeah.
sitcom actress. Like before when she was on The Big Bang, and even the few things she did after that, even like when she was a teenager on the 10
Hmm.
Things to Date My
Yep.
Teenage
Yep.
Daughter, she was very much just a young sitcom actress.
Yeah. She was the pretty
She,
girl. You needed her, and
exactly.
she was funny. She had the talent for it. Um,
I think she's very much though going to be, and she's actually doing it a little bit better. Like a Christina Applegate.
yeah, for sure.
who
For
who
sure.
did
Very
everybody
similar.
knows her as Kelly Bundy, and she was this hot, you had her poster up on the wall, very much a sex object. But then when she got older and she started doing some roles, not even just
Hmm.
in comedy but in like on TV, you're like, oh shit, this chick can act.
Yeah.
Like,
Yeah.
she's not just a pretty face. Like, she can legit,
Yeah.
do
And
stuff. And I think,
I think with Kaylee Cuoco, I think if you really want to see her range, I actually think The Flight Attendant is the perfect show for that.
I've watched a couple of episodes of that. That's one that we started and then just never went back to. And
Yeah,
it's on the okay.
it's
We have to
not
finish that.
perfect. It's not a perfect
Yeah,
show.
yeah.
I actually like the second season more than the first season.
Okay.
But it's not perfect. It definitely has its flaws, but her work in it is really, really good. And I think that comes out here. This is a little more funny. Like it's a little sillier. She gets to be a little more funny again, but she's
Good.
going through it. So like, and so what they do is when they figure out who the murderer is, Chris Messina basically confronts him and he's like, "Look, dude, we know who you are. We can prove who you are. So either come record a podcast with us, or we're going to turn you in." And so the first few episodes are kind of how that goes down, because they make a deal with him and they're like, "Look, we're going to do the podcast. We're going to get famous. We're going to make some money. We're going to do it all anonymous, right? We're going to cover everybody's voices so nobody knows who's who. But all these, and that's what's funny is like this is a total satire on the true crime
Yeah.
podcast because there's so many of these podcasts that start off and then they get sold for millions of dollars because these people are doing the research and have are getting interviews with people that police don't get or that whatever. And so it's kind of like Only Murders in the Building, right? Like you're satirizing,
Yeah.
satirizing,
Satirizing. Yeah.
you're making fun of or poking fun at the true crime podcast. And
Yeah.
so it's all about how they're trying to get this podcast off the ground. They literally are in the room with the dude and they have an agreement with him. They're like, "Oh, you can't kill anybody while we're recording because that then makes us accomplices to those crimes," right?
Right.
And
Exactly.
so every now and then he's like, "We really need to spice it up." He's like, "I should get back to work," and they're like, "No, dude, like you can't do that." So it's totally funny in that regard. Um, the only flaw, like I actually like the dude that plays the serial killer, and he's solid. But the problem that I have is like when you meet him in the show, he's a nice guy. Obviously not. Any good serial killer is the guy next door, right? Like he's not the guy. He doesn't look or act like a serial killer. That's what you always hear, right? Like
Right.
no, Ted Bundy was the nicest guy, whatever. Um, but as soon as he's outed as the killer, he starts using like his like evil serial killer guy voice like all the time, even with people that don't know who he is. And I'm like, it would make more sense if they pulled him back in every public situation where he's not the killer. It
Okay.
makes sense for him to tough up when he's talking to them, but not necessarily when he's talking to other people.
So I'm actually texting you right now from the IMDb page, just because we don't want to give it away. But I'm guessing just from the IMDb listings who the
Yeah,
killer is.
yeah, and I mean,
Um.
it's really like you're gonna get it before the end of the first. Like watching it,
Yeah.
you're gonna know who it is. Like the commercials make it seem like it's a big mystery, and they throw a bunch of like dudes. Like if you watch the trailer, they just show dude after dude after dude,
Yeah.
making it look like any one of these people could be the serial killer. It's pretty obvious, pretty quick who it is.
Okay.
Um, and but I just leave it for people to figure out if they haven't looked it up. So, um, but yeah, I would say it's fun. Definitely go give it a watch. I I enjoyed it, and like I said, it went real fast. You can burn through it real quick, or not if you don't want to, but there's really no reason not to.
Well, that's
So
so that's definitely. I'm gonna I for your recommendation, I'm gonna burn through that then because there's only 5 episodes of it out now,
no,
so
the
it'll
whole
be
thing's
easy to
out. The whole
catch
thing's
up.
out.
Oh, it is. It's just how many episodes is it?
I think there's 8.
There's
But
8.
the whole
Okay.
thing's out. I watched them all.
Okay.
So I'll watch to the end. That's the only gotcha too
Oh,
is
it is
that
8. It is 8.
yeah,
Yeah. No, I just didn't.
and
I need
it
to have my
ends on a
prescription checked.
cliffhanger that I don't think it needed to end on. I'm like it just kind of ends, and you're like, shit, it better get a season 2 because this thing happened. Um, and so it kind of ends in a weird spot. So I'm really hoping it gets its second season. Streaming is weird right now, and with the writer strike, who knows what the hell's going to happen. But
Yeah.
the one thing I could say about it too, I have come to use Rotten Tomatoes in a weird way. Like if there's a huge skew and I'll get to the crowded room because that has one of the biggest skews I have ever fucking seen. But if there's a huge skew, I tend to lean towards the audience score,
Yeah.
because I think critics
Same.
are kind of up their own ass, and
Yeah.
that's actually what happens to Transformers, and I'll talk about that too. But with this one, the critics have it at 74% and the audience has it at 80%. Then that tells me that's a pretty well received show. Like if they're in the same general area,
Yeah.
um, then I think they're doing pretty good.
Right on.
So I would say then with that covered, you weren't
Well,
around last week, but we
I
should.
wasn't, but I do have one other notable thing I forgot that comes
I
right off of your murder. It's just a real short one because I'm actually 2 episodes behind. But final season of Barry started.
Have you watched that? Like I'm so far behind on Barry, I have no idea what's
Okay,
going
so
on.
like I said, I'm only like 2 episodes behind from this final season. So that show, it is a dark comedy from the beginning,
Oh yeah.
right? It This final season, like how far into it are you? Like how behind are you? Like
I don't even know how far I got in the second season, to be honest. So I'm
okay.
pretty far
So
behind.
you're pretty far. So it gets darker and darker, and the storylines get crazier. But dude, the season finale from the last season is like, oh shit, this is insane.
I know from the trailers
Like
he ends up in jail. Like that's all I know about the final season.
it's yeah, but how it happens and what he is like all of a sudden, like when you see where the last season ends and where this one begins, it's like holy fuck. Like what happened in this like like time period, but it's really really cool. But oh my god, a show that I didn't think could get any darker and still maintain its like humor has somehow found a way to do that. Like it's insane. And I actor that is slept on in everything he does, Stephen Root is
Oh yeah, he's
absolutely
brilliant, man.
amazing. There's so many little performances and of things he's been in. Like he's even though he's barely in it, he's a complete scene stealer. And I know not a lot of people love it, but Kevin Smith's Jersey Girl, him with George Carlin, and just the little one liners and these little throwaway lines that he has, are just amazing. He was amazing on News Radio, as the boss on that. He's just everything that cat does
He's
is
so
great.
good in
And
Newsroom. Not
Newsroom, that's what it
Newsroom.
was. Not News Radio. No, yeah,
News
yeah, it was
Radio.
News Radio.
News Radio.
Yeah. So he's back, and his character has, because of what's happened, has so changed. Like it's very interesting because you go from like this, like I think it's third season, the end of the third season, and everybody's still the same character that they were, and then all of a sudden you've got the break, and it starts the next season, and everybody's a totally different person. Like they're in it's insane how different everybody is. Henry Winkler still showing up throwing down fucking just bombs, man.
Yeah,
Just
he's
the dude
dope.
is amazing. But yeah, so that's definitely catch up. I'm only a couple episodes behind, but Barry so far, like if you are that dark humor person and you like Barry, I have a feeling it's going to be a very satisfying final season for this
Yeah,
that you will.
I'm really curious to get there because I haven't watched it yet, and I feel like I'm doing myself a disservice. I need to get caught back up and
Yeah.
finish it. That's a relatively short episode show too, right? They're only
Oh
half-hour
yeah.
episodes.
I think if they're not half hour, they're 40 minutes, but I also think they're short seasons. They're only like 10 episode seasons.
Yeah, yeah. So I think it'll
Like
go pretty
they're
quick.
yeah, but it's just amazing. Yeah, Anthony Kerrigan as NoHo Hank
Oh my god,
is that
he's one of the best characters.
on television in years.
Yeah, he's so fun and he does it
Just
so well.
it
Does
is
so
like
well.
it's a potential. It's so funny because the character, the way he plays it, has the potential to be over the top, but somehow this cat holds it back just enough that I believe this dude could exist
Yeah,
in real life.
yeah, because it almost feels like he's right there on the edge of just being stupid comedy, like,
And it stops.
and he's not, and he's
Yeah.
like he does such a good job with that. Now, granted, I'm only talking off of the first,
Oh
early
no,
episodes, but I've only heard great things.
yeah, no, he gets even better. His storyline, especially coming from the third, I think it is, season into this fourth, is just nutty bananas. Like he yeah, I don't want to give anything away because you're gonna get there. And if anybody's watching who hasn't watched Barry, go watch Barry.
For sure.
It's just off the chain. But yeah, it's only, I'm trying to find out how many seasons there are. This it's the only thing I hate
I
about
think it's 5.
IMDb. It gives you like episodes. No, it's 4.
Is it
It
4?
is
Okay.
4. Yeah, this fourth season's the last one. Um, yeah, it's the end of the third season. Yeah. Oh God, I'm more than 2 episodes behind. I'm like 3 episodes behind. Um, yeah, but definitely watch it. It's just an insane show. But yeah.
Cool.
Um,
So cool with that. You were not here last week when I
you.
talked about Ted Lasso. So, I mean, all I can say about Ted is that I thought the ending, like, I know this last season had its ups and downs. Like, people liked and disliked things about the season. And I kind of talked about it. There's an episode in this last season that hit the low for the series where it was like a 6.5 on Rotten Tomatoes, right? Like or on IMDb. So it like was lower rated than some of the other ones. But overall, especially when you get to the end and all the little nuances of the last episode, like the things they call back to subtly so many times, and all that, um, it it was the perfect ending for the show. I think one of the things that I talked about was how I don't know where you go. Like if you do a new season, which they're talking about doing, you either do it without Ted or you do it without everybody else. Like it wouldn't make sense for them to all come back together again. So, it seems like they're considering doing it with everybody but Ted going forward, um, based on some tweets and stuff that I've seen. Nothing definitive at all, and no quotes from anybody, just like little hints that, the rest of the team may stay together.
So yeah, I uh I cried liberally throughout that episode.
How
Um
about the opening scene of that episode? So
dude,
I got to ask because I have always been like team Ted and Rebecca. Like I always kind of wanted that to happen. So like when it starts off, I was like, it can't be happening, but I, you know, kind of wish it did,
yes. Yes, that's exactly how we all felt. We like, yes, we're talking about Ted. My daughter got up to get a snack and she knows like it's yeah, we that opening scene when Ted walks out and they put him in like, just in the shirt like that, so he comes out and he's
He
very
looks a
kind of
little
casual.
messed up and yeah,
Yeah, that you're like, oh my god, this happened, because the episode before ends with with Ted going, hey boss, we need to talk about something, and
right.
the two of them going off, and the episode ends. Um, you're like, oh my god, I always wanted her to end up with Sam, but I still
Yeah.
thought the whole Ted Rebecca thing would work out great, and then everybody else starts coming out,
Yeah.
and it's
Well,
just too
and
funny.
I think it worked too because we've seen Rebecca post, you know, re,
Yes,
you know, post coitus
yes,
before, and
exactly.
that's her jam. Like she sits in the kitchen, has a drink, whatever, and so it's what's happened before, and then when Beard comes out in that goddamn red fucking banana hammock,
It's
like you're just
so
like, no,
funny.
dude, you're like, that's
Oh
not
my
okay. Like
god.
that's just not okay. And but yeah, it was funny. I thought that opening scene was perfect, and just so many nods to everything that happened before in the
It
series.
is. And it's so, I mean, it's tough to talk about just this episode without dipping back into other episodes from the season, because there were highs and lows. There were moments of the season, and soulless Andrew doesn't understand how much I love this show. I just, this to me is
The
like,
dude's broken.
yeah, this is amazing TV. This is some of the best TV that's ever been made. It's funny, it's heartbreaking, it's heartwarming. This season there were some, I don't even want to call them missteps, just things that I didn't necessarily like. I liked, okay, so, but I didn't like them, but at the same time, in the Lasso verse slash real world, if you will, it actually makes sense. Like Keely and Roy, you start the season, Keely and Roy have broken up, and you're like, that's part of how you start the first this final season is finding that out, and it's like, oh shit. And then they kind of tease that maybe Roy's gonna possibly get together or hit on the Phoebe's teacher, like
Oh
that
man, you know what? I
interaction.
actually really wanted that to happen. Like I was okay with them being done, and I kind of wanted it to
Yes.
have that moment, and that was a bummer
and
too.
and then you've got just then you've got Keely getting together with Jack, which almost felt a little forced
Yep, that's
to a
exactly what I would say.
degree.
Yeah.
But at the same time, I loved it for Keely's character development,
Hmm.
because I love that she was just like, no, like I'm not saying this. I'm not sorry for this. This is what this is. And you
Yeah, yeah,
knew, and you knew that that video was meant for Jamie.
yeah, yeah, for sure.
You knew that's where it was, even before he came and apologized to her about it, about getting it. Like, you just knew it was. Um, this whole season has been great. They always Ted they always have about mid-season, if they don't do a Christmas episode, like we didn't get a Christmas episode this season, which I'm okay
Right.
with, but we did have that kind of interlude episode
Hmm.
where everybody's out on the town for the night,
Yeah,
and
that's right. And that's when she falls into the water and ends up with the
yes,
dude. And
the Dutch guy, and
yeah,
the team spends the entire night deciding what to do in the lobby of the hotel. It's just so funny, and it just makes you love these characters more, dude. And that's the night that Trent, Krim, and Colin come out to each
yes,
other,
yeah,
and
yeah,
that was done so well. um and then I knew when Isaac found out that Colin was gay. I knew why he was
exactly why he
upset
was mad. So did
right
I.
then. I
Yep,
knew it right
yep,
then. Like, they didn't even have to do a thing. Because my daughters were like, "Are you sure?" I'm like, "I'm guaranteeing you."
yep,
I
yeah,
said Isaac is mad because Colin didn't trust him. I
yep.
just that character, the character of Isaac McAdoo, like, that's
Yeah,
just not him.
why was that the way he found out, and not from,
Yeah, that's
you know,
that's why
yeah.
Isaac's pissed. He's like, because he was like, and I love the line that he has, is the "What's wrong with me, bruv, that you couldn't
Hmm.
trust me with this?" And you're just like, oh shit. Yeah, so there's just so many great little storylines and things that happened this whole season. Um, yeah, like I said, Barbara, like, I wanted to hate her, but I couldn't. There's just something about, like, the final episode was the perfect send off and love letter. I was
Yeah,
so trying to figure out how
yeah,
they were going to do it. And they crammed a shit ton into that episode, but it didn't feel like it. There was nothing in
yeah.
it that felt like, oh, we're trying to wrap up this storyline, so here it is. It's all in there very effortlessly. And every callback that's in there, that they like Colin, that night that he tells Trent that all he wishes he could do is be down on the field celebrating like everybody else and kiss his boyfriend, and he fucking does
And
it.
he does. Yeah, yeah,
You love it. um the when when Jamie and Roy come clean about their feelings for Keely,
yeah.
and they
They just
go to
beat
her
the
house,
shit out
and
of
she's
each
like,
other.
and they're like, "Pick," and Keely just kicks them both out.
Yeah,
And I forget what Roy says, but he's like, "We're both complete fucking idiots, aren't we?"
yeah, yeah,
Something like
yeah.
that. You're like,
Yeah, it was basically, they're like, yeah, we should have known that was happening.
um, I love that Rebecca at the airport. Oh, here's a fun little interesting tie back to that too. The little girl, the guy who plays the Dutch guy's daughter,
Yeah,
who comes running at Rebecca, the reason that little girl held her gaze, that's young Rebecca from the mirror
yeah, that's what I
from
thought.
the
That's what I
episode
thought.
before.
Yeah,
That episode was great. Oh my god, when they turn Edwin and Khufu down and just like she says the question and then they cut and the doors open and he's walking out, there's just fucking food all
Yeah,
over everybody. It's hilarious.
yeah.
Sam Robertson, he's another one of those
Oh,
actors
he's
that
so
like
great.
everything he's in,
Because
he
like,
winds up
okay,
being a
so
scene
just
stealer.
to take two shows and see how different this dude is, go watch Veep,
Huh.
which number
Veep,
one, everybody should
exactly.
watch Veep anyways, and
Yeah.
then watch him on Ted Lasso. Two completely different characters. Like he's so innocent on Veep. Like like he doesn't, and then in this
But
he's
not. That's what
such a
winds up being
douche.
so funny about the character
Yeah,
is that he's really not. He's just like this sweet naive guy, but it turns out like with stuff he says he's like a total closet freak
yeah.
when he talks about stuff. It's so funny. But then this you son of a Nigerian whore, like all the shit he says to Sam.
So funny. when Sam turns him down, he's like, "Fuck you."
Fuck
It's
you.
like, I will buy your house. I'm going to burn it down. I'm going to shit on the edges. It's like, you're like, oh my god, dude,
Oh my
so
god.
funny.
Yeah. Um I love and the imagery was strong when Rupert comes down on the
Oh my
field
god,
in
with
the
his
black
jacket
suit
flowing like
jacket,
fucking
just
Darth
perfect.
Vader.
Like I really feel like I told my wife, I said, I don't know if maybe the actor's sick or if they did just such a good job with the makeup. They actually made him look
He
even
looked
more
really
gaunt
gaunt.
than he
Yeah,
usually does. That it just added that extra little bit to him. I do think that I don't want to say complaint, but the only thing that I felt was kind of like a little meh was like we're assuming that Rupert has just fired Nate because he just wouldn't go along with his little womanizing
yeah,
journey. You're never 100% sure. It's just the Wonder Kid, is no longer the coach. You're like, all right, that's fine. I I didn't want to like Nate. I didn't want him to be redeemed after everything that had happened, but they actually do a great
yeah,
job of
yeah.
making me enjoy that. And man, that moment between Beard and Nate in the hallway
Oh yeah.
when you all of a sudden get Beard's history, because up until that point
He
we
was just
had no
Ted
idea
Lasso's
how
coach.
Beard
He was
had
just yeah,
yeah, and then all of a sudden you hear Beard's story and it's like holy shit, like he's another actor that like he's been in other stuff and he's enjoyable in it, but this role was like built for him.
yeah.
There, like it is. God, the actor's name is. I was.
Brett,
That's
no,
that's
Brett Goldstein is
yeah. Brett Goldstein's Roy.
Roy.
It's Brendan Hunt.
There you go.
Um, he's yeah. Like he's been. He was in. I'm trying to see what. Like let's see. He's done a lot of voice work. Horrible Bosses 2 is the most. Oh, okay. He was in We're the Millers.
And he's a writer
Uh,
too. Like he's
oh
written on a bunch
yeah,
of stuff too.
but this role is like built for him. He's absolutely perfect throughout the
Yeah.
entire series. The Beard character has always been so fun. I love that when he marries Jane, he's wearing the pants from the night
Yep.
that with the Beard, and then they show up. That was the other thing they did. They brought back everybody from every season who
Yep.
meant anything, who was even just the little side, like the girl who plays soccer with Ted
Yep.
occasionally on the 2 episodes. They bring her back. The dude that calls him a wanker.
Yep. Right at the
You
end.
know,
Yep.
like all that. They bring all these people. The guy that Rebecca's out on the date on,
Yep. And then
they bring
the
back.
other one thing that like I almost forgot about was the last scene with Jamie and his dad.
Oh God.
Like his dad's cleaned up, like because that's why his dad wasn't in the game because he was getting cleaned up. And then
Yes.
like I was like, okay, okay, like they even somehow redeemed that guy who was a colossal
Yeah.
piece of shit. And they redeem him.
I think they were able to redeem him in that moment because A, they didn't make a big thing out of it, and B, his redemption actually came through Jamie.
Right, for sure.
Like there was almost this like when we get that episode where we meet Jamie's mom
Mm-hmm.
and stepdad, who are just fucking hilarious. When we meet them and Jamie almost forgives his dad in a way, and you then again
Yeah.
understand more about the dad, that when they do have that, because we know the dad's in rehab even before that. I think it's like it's earlier in the episode, or it's another again little throwaway moment where they're cutting through something, and you see the dad in rehab, and then you got Jamie talking to him. Wait, no, is the dad just in rehab, or is Jamie in rehab talking to him? I think we just see the dad in rehab,
We
but
see him in
but you
rehab during the episode, so we find out that. But then at the very end,
that's right.
Jamie's there, like showing pictures and actually
He's
talking
that's
to
right.
him.
That's
So
right.
they have their moment.
Yeah, and that was really nice too.
Yeah,
Like I was really like, oh, that's fucking great. I love that I love that Nate is back, but he's the assistant kit
yeah,
man. Like he's not
yeah,
back as a coach, and he's happy about it. That was the other one. The one I think the character who I absolutely loved that they kept on as Will as
yes,
a new kit man. He has wound up being so much fun. Him and Higgins
yes.
out that night, when they're in Amsterdam. The interview,
You're gonna
the
make him a
interlude
man.
episode. Yeah, that was so hilarious. Um, I just, it's rare that you get a series finale that is super satisfying, that really does hit everything. And I'll tell you what, I would love more Ted Lasso. I don't know how they're going to do it without Ted. I would love the storyline of these people coming together, but so much, it really is so much of the heart of the show is Ted. Like
Yeah, it'd be a
it's
different show.
a
Not a
very
lot
different show.
different, but it would be different.
It
You
it,
know,
it would. I would watch. I was talking to my
I'd
daughter
try
about
it.
this. I'll watch it. Because
Yeah,
if they can hold, if Jason Sudeikis is the only one that really is gone, but you can keep most of that writing staff together, most of the team together, I'm on board. I'll
yep,
definitely watch it and see where it goes. I would watch, if it's done right, though. I would watch a Women of Richmond. Like that's how
sure,
Keely and
sure,
Rebecca were
sure.
planning that at the end. I loved uh I loved what Rebecca does with the team,
Right,
selling
right.
off 50%, and May has that was
A
absolutely
stack of
great.
them. Yeah, that was pretty awesome.
Yes. So you can actually, if you go to if you follow the Instagram, Ted Lasso is life. One of the guys on there actually has the certificate in a PDF that's in a link in bio that you can download. I downloaded it. I just have to print them up, and you can just alter the PDF. And so I'm making one for my wife for her office to put
Nice.
up, and then my daughter wanted one as certificate to for one share of the team, which I think is great. But yeah, I'm so satisfied with this. I would watch just about anything they try to spin off.
Yeah,
um ted Ted and telling his son about being a goldfish at the end,
yeah,
it was just a it was so satisfying,
yeah,
and just such a perfect, and it was a love letter to the rest of the series. um I loved how then also through the credits they also just did a whole bunch of flashbacks of, like, the different pictures from Christmas that they had, and like, not behind the scenes but stuff you didn't see, or different camera angles on
yeah,
certain things. It was really neat. Yeah, they you just love everything they did. Like this is one of those shows that somehow every time they do something and you go, "Oh shit, what are they doing?" It always works out so well
yeah,
on one hand. Because like I said, even my only complaint about it was how, like, the whole Keely and Jack relationship was forced. It still worked out because it gave us that moment for Keely, and it was, was great to see her just like, no. And Juno Temple is absolutely amazing.
yeah.
She's if you like her, another great series that you could find very easily stateside. I've talked about it on the show a while ago. She's in the Offer on Paramount Plus. It's her and
Okay.
Miles Teller. It's about the guy who produced The Godfather, the first Godfather
Oh, that's
picture,
right.
and
That's right.
got it
Yeah, yeah,
made. It didn't get a lot of heat. It's really, really good. Totally worth watching, and it's an amazing story. And Miles Teller is just Miles Teller, and so there, it really brings a lot to that. So that's just, if you love her, you'll love her in that. American accent, but she's still that same kind of ballsy woman that makes her own way. Like, you buy that role for Keeley. or for that actress. I think she does that very
Yeah.
well. Like she's got the potential to, again, another one to be the small blonde eye candy, and she doesn't. She sinks her teeth into stuff, and she's great.
Yeah.
But yeah, Ted, I it is a show that I've already watched it completely all the way through at least
Yeah.
twice.
Yeah. I
You
think we've
know,
done it 3 times, other than the
you
last
know,
season, but up
yeah.
until the last season. Um,
Um, and I'll continue to watch it. I absolutely love it.
yeah.
Um,
Yeah. I think I
I
said it
think
last week. It's in my like favorite sitcom rotation with uh, uh, Schitt's Creek and Superstore. Like I
okay,
can watch
yeah,
those anytime and be happy with them. Um, so yeah, I think it's a great show, and Andrew is broken.
yeah. I
Um,
don't. It's tough because I feel like I almost want to go and go. Okay, I get it. If you watch it from the beginning, maybe you haven't liked it, but watch these 4 episodes and then go back and watch it from the beginning, because I think he just hasn't, maybe for Andrew, gotten far enough in, because there's so much in this show that I'm like, dude, you would love this. Oh, and I loved how much Dr. Sharon was in the last episode.
yeah,
Just watching the game, that was
yep.
great. And then, Michelle and Henry sitting at home, and the
And
stepdad, the
yeah, the stepdad
dentist,
is just like not into it at all,
and they're just like,
like at
shh.
all. So yeah, it's good. I again, Andrew, you're a fool, crusty old
I don't
man. Just
understand it.
fucking,
Yeah,
I don't get it. But I I will move us along
I'm almost
to
I'm almost threatening to refuse to watch Attack on Titan until Andrew watches Ted Lasso.
yeah, you're both missing out. Um, Attack on Titan's great. Um, but going from pure joy, I'm going to go to pure fucking depression next.
Ugh.
I watched the first 3 episodes of The Crowded Room. It's all that's available on Apple TV right now. I think it's gonna
Okay.
it's gonna be once a week here on out. Um, and what is interesting about this one, and I talked about it a few minutes ago, the chasm between the audience score and the critic score is unreal. The critic score is 27% on Rotten Tomatoes. The audience
Wow.
score is 91%.
Now, and
I
again, I haven't watched it yet. I've watched the trailer for it. Do you think that score, though, could have anything to do with the fact that it's just Tom Holland and Amanda Seyfried are in it? And
I really do, and I'll tell you why. So, uh, just the little log line for it is in Manhattan in the summer of 1979. A young man is arrested for a shocking crime, and an unlikely investigator must solve the mystery behind it before the true criminal strikes again. This all sounds like deep, like great mystery, whatever.
yeah,
It opens up with him chasing a dude down the street, shooting at the guy, not hitting him. Um, and there's a girl with him, and then he gets arrested for this particular crime. When he comes into the office, the police suggest that maybe he's a serial killer. You haven't seen him do anything. Then they need an expert, so they bring in Amanda Seyfried, who for me is just way too doughy eyed to be like a murder expert. Like she's just, I don't buy her in that role. I don't find her to be a great actress most of the time, anyways.
wait.
Um,
So she comes in as almost like an FBI profiler
exactly.
criminologist in 1979.
Yeah, yeah.
A
Now,
woman?
granted,
I like. I
79
don't mean.
is because if you watch Mind Hunters is when serial killers became a thing. But anyways, yeah. So Mind Hunters was a little bit before that. I think it was earlier 70s, maybe even the 60s. Um, but yeah, there wasn't, serial killers wasn't a thing. And so the idea here is that, from the thing, he committed this horrible
Mass
crime.
murderers. They
Yeah,
were just mass murderers. In the 70s, they were just called mass
yeah.
murderers, is what they considered them. Yeah.
And so
Well,
the
this is very
pilot,
interesting casting. Casting a woman in a role like that. It
well,
like
okay, so
I don't
so
I don't
this is
I don't
based
want to
on a
say it,
true story.
which is
So
very, wow, really?
so
Okay, cool.
it's based on a true story. And the one thing that I will tell you that I have read across the board and I have followed because I don't want to get it ruined is everybody says do not research the true story because it will blow the whole show for you.
Okay, well then I
Whatever
won't
the
do that.
mystery is that's happening is, I guess, pretty easy to find if you look up the real story. So I haven't looked
Okay.
up the dude. I haven't looked up the show. I haven't looked up the story it's based on because I don't want it to be spoiled. But right now, the first three episodes are a whole lot of character development, like a ton of character development. In the first three episodes, I don't know what this shocking crime um, that the tagline is talking about. Like he's been arrested for shooting
Really?
at someone. They brought in a specialist to talk to him, and you have no idea what
What
this
he's
big
done.
crime is. Yeah, you have no idea what he's done. The timeline's a little sketchy. The first pilot episode's good. It sets up the characters. It doesn't answer any questions, but it sets it up. Whatever. The second episode's kind of boring. It doesn't do a whole lot, and then the third episode kind of ends in a good spot to take you forward. But there's a lot in the middle that's just like depressing ass shit. Like this kid, he hasn't had the worst life I've ever seen. Like we talked about in pre-recording, something like Basketball Diaries is much worse.
Yeah.
He at least that I've seen so far in these three episodes, he smoked pot, but he never dealt with drug addiction, anything like that. Um, but it's got an interesting cast of characters. There's all these people that are in his life, and it definitely like starts to hint in the second and third episode that maybe I don't know. It's such a mystery, and I don't know the true story, so I'm speculating. But like, there's hints that maybe he's got multiple personality syndrome, or he's got something like that. There's
Okay.
some kind of schizophrenic something or other to him. But the show is just heavy, and it plods along and it introduces some characters and you don't really know why, um, and you just it's weird. Like I for once I really am leaning more towards the critics and the audience. I feel like the
Yeah.
audience loves Tom Holland, who, to be fair, Tom Holland is fantastic in this. Like he is a sad
Right.
motherfucker. If you see the interviews with him, there is a reason he's taken a year off of acting from finishing this show. And you can tell just from like he is not a happy kid. Whatever it is that got him to this point that we don't understand yet has not been good for him as the character. Like the character has not had a good life. His stepdad is abusive. His mom is played by the girl from Shameless, Emmy Rossum.
Emmy Rossum, yeah.
Yeah. And
Wow. We've hit the point where Emmy
right where
Rossum
she's
is
Tom
playing.
Holland's. Yeah. I was like, oh, okay.
Like, well, because it's very interesting, and I know obviously I mean, there's a little bit of an age difference, but let's like you have Marissa Tomei
Right.
playing Aunt May and Spider-Man to Tom Holland, and now
Yeah.
you've got Emmy Rossum, who I still look at, who's younger than us,
Yeah. Yeah.
actually, by like a couple of years. And I'm just like,
Yeah. Well, and that's
she's playing.
like Tom Holland's such a little dude that I mean he's still technically playing like a high school kid or just out of high school. So
Yeah,
I think it when we meet him, he's telling his story from '77, so he's right around 18 there, and he gets arrested in '79. So I mean, he's what 20 in the
yeah.
show. Tom Holland's older than that, but and I mean Emmy Rossum could be a great looking 40-year-old. That works. Um, but yeah, it's a weird show so far. Like I'm really waiting for something to break to make it truly interesting. Like you have these interesting characters. You've got this dude that kind of takes him in into almost. It's not a halfway house, but it kind of feels like that. Like Tom Holland's character's life is so shitty. His name's Danny. His life is so
Yeah.
shitty. This guy, I think it's Yitzhak is his name,
Yitzhak, okay, played by
and
Leo Raz.
yeah, and he's like, you can stay here, but we have these rules, right? So he comes up with these rules, but he's very protective. He's a huge dude. Even at one point stands up to Tom Holland's stepdad, who sucks, and is like, yeah, he's good. He said he wants to stay here. He's gonna go ahead and stay here. So why don't you fuck right off, and so they have that moment. He's really good. There's the girl Annabelle that the Danny character is into, but also staying in this kind of halfway house is a girl named Ariana. So there's some drama there. There's drama in every relationship. It's just what these relationships mean, and like what the fuck is the crime we're talking about? Because yes, shooting at somebody in public in New York City is bad, right? but it's not the crime that they're suggesting that it is. So why are they tracking him down for this other thing that hasn't been addressed at all? So it's super weird. So um, I'm waiting for it to get better. Like I said, I think you hit the nail on the head though in the very beginning. I think this 91% is because people like Tom Holland and Amanda Seyfried.
Yeah.
Um, and the critics, even somebody, I was reading some reviews of somebody that watched the first 3 episodes, and they're like, love the pilot, second episode sucked, third episode's getting better. So I'm waiting for the fourth episode. It looks like it'll drop on next Friday, the 16th. So that's all of that.
Sorry, I got caught up in here for a second. I was looking at the cast
It's
of
great.
no of the show while you
Mm-hmm.
were looking at it, and the guy that or the girl that plays
Ariana.
Sacha Lane, yeah, who plays Ariana. Um I was looking in here, I was looking at what else she was in, and it's interesting because it's listed under um filmography, but all of a sudden I'm clicking through and I thought there's a Marvel property out there that I didn't even know existed. And apparently there is. There is this thing, it's called Wastelanders, and I'm trying to look into more of
Oh yeah, I
this,
see that.
but like
It's a
it's
podcast
it's a
series. So
podcast
is
on
it an
series
audio?
yeah, on Sirius XM, and like this first one that it has, like this, it's Marvel's Wastelanders. Hawkeye is the sole survivor of the Avengers. Hawkeye is now a sideshow freak, reliving the worst day of his life for paying audiences. He's surly, but there's still that fire in him to be a hero to avenge his friends. It looks very interesting. I'm gonna have
Yeah,
to
it's
dig a
good
little more
cast
into
too.
this
Good
because
cast.
I watched. There's actually a Wolverine podcast that was out
Yes,
there
I've
that
heard
Marvel
about that.
Studio created.
I actually
It's
meant
really
to
good.
check that out. Yeah.
It's really really fucking good. It's in terms we had joked around and talked about, and I still, well, anyway, but this thing, just doing like an audio,
Yeah.
kind of
Yeah.
play. Man, they set the bar really high.
Do
Like
they?
with
Yeah.
this, like I don't want to say there's a lot of money in it, but like the Foley work
There's
in it
Disney
is,
Marvel money behind it, I'm sure.
but it's still a fucking podcast.
Yeah.
It's, but like the Foley work on it is like, it's good that it does really almost harken back to like the old radio plays when they were doing this, that you're listening to it and you're like, oh shit, this is dope. And they also, I will say this, it is worth it to take some time to listen to it with a good set of headphones. Like I've got,
Mm-hmm.
like I've got these Beats Studios that I listen to it on, because it is done with this kind of spatial audio thing
Yeah. Yeah. Yeah.
that they've done, that it's good with earbuds in, but when you got something that's blocking out other noise and it's very encompassing, it really does put you in a different place. The way, like some of the audio engineering that they've done, absolutely fucking phenomenal. Like it's really cool stuff. um but yeah, we'll have to look at that. So yes, moving on.
Yes. So since we're talking about Tom Holland, we should just talk about Spider-Man. You watched on your
Spider
screen
Verse.
Spider-Verse.
Yeah,
I talked about it last week. I loved it. It's one of my favorite movies of the year.
easily.
Um,
Yeah,
for me, I said
I
that I think Guardians was better for me only because Guardians is finishing a story and this is the middle of a story. But like visually speaking, it's fucking
oh,
incredible. The voice work is incredible. Like there's nothing wrong with Spider-Man Into the Spider-Verse.
there's only, and there is actually a spoiler
Yeah,
alert
yeah,
for
spoil
everybody who
away.
hasn't
At
seen
this
it
point, it's
yet.
been out for 2 weeks, so
Um, there is only one. I don't want to say inconsistency, but there's one thing. My daughter and I, Sofa actually almost came on tonight with me to talk about this because we went and saw it, and she absolutely loved it. The youngest one loved it. Like it was just good all around for us. Um, the only thing, and then we can jump into the love letter about this movie that I'm about to write it. But the only thing that we were a little confused about plot wise, that I was going, okay, wait, what does this mean? Is this just a hole, or did they, is this a plan? Is that so, if the spider from Earth 45 somehow ends up in, what is it, Earth 161,
Yeah, I forget
whatever it
what. Yeah.
is. Yeah, and that's the one that bites Tom Holland. Shouldn't there be a gigantic, like, one of those like cosmic anomaly holes in Earth 45, or did they already close it up? Because in theory there was no then Spider-Man unless there's not supposed to be a Spider-Man on Earth 45. But if there's not supposed to be a Spider-Man on Earth 45, why do you have the radioactive spider that
So
escapes?
the what I saw, or what my son pointed out, and I trust this kid more than I trust almost anybody else,
Yeah.
is that that spider that bit the Miles that is floating behind your head was actually supposed to bite Miles in that universe. So it would close that up because in it's very possible there just could have been two Spider-Men in that Spider-Verse or in that
Okay.
universe. Um, and so yeah. So it was always supposed to bite a Miles, and it just bit the wrong Miles because of the way they jumped him over.
Okay,
So
I'll buy into that.
yeah,
I'll take that as a good. Okay, that's a good answer. But yeah, this, um you likened it to Infinity War, and I can see that.
yeah.
I could definitely see that. It did to me though, just because of see, Infinity War didn't cliffhanger to me.
No,
Like it was,
but it like
it was
for me, it's almost the same. Like you've lost something, and now
yeah.
this group, like it's not the same, but there's it's hard to make a straight comparison because this movie is so crazy.
Well, that's why, just because of like the kind of cliffhangery aspect, but the way they've kind of put it together, to me it really did feel more like an Empire than it did in Infinity War, just in the way they've kind of set that up. Because we now have like these basically three different groups going on. You've
Yeah,
got Gwen, you've got angry Spider-Man. I'm blanking on his name now.
2099, Miguel O'Hara.
Yeah, Miguel O'Hare. Um, hunting, each hunting for Miles in their own way, trying to fix this. Um, I still think there's way more going on there behind the scenes than we know yet.
Yeah, for sure.
I think there's still, like, the next movie is not going to be just um like the wrapping up of this. Like, there's still more mystery that's going on. Like, we don't know everything, and I think,
I
Miguel,
think they said that the next movie may even be longer than this one.
oh, I hope so.
And this one was
This
long. Like it
didn't
was
feel like it though.
crazy. No, I said it in the last episode. The only reason that I ever looked at my watch is because I was like, this is going because I didn't realize it was a two-parter. So I was watching it and I was like, this can't just be resolved at this point. Like
Yeah,
we're like, what the fuck is going on?
that's exactly what happened. Like, I think I looked at the time beforehand and I knew it was 2 hours plus, but it was exactly what you said. All of a sudden, like, I'm like, what time is it? I'm like, dude, there's no way this shit is getting wrapped up.
Yeah, because it would be a
Like,
terrible ending if they did. Like whatever
exactly.
they would do to wrap it up wouldn't make any sense.
Yeah. I loved everything about this. Even if you don't, so we've basically now talked to my wife. Chrissy's just not a cartoon person unless it's like a Disney cartoon. She just never has been. It wasn't a big thing for her growing up. She liked Gem. So, like, she's watched, all any Disney or Pixar that comes out. She doesn't necessarily have to see it in the
Right.
theater, but she winds up watching it.
Because you guys have
We've
girls, so
exactly.
just
But we have talked to her. We're actually going to go. We're going to wait until this is ready to come out on Disney Plus. And she said, "Okay, I'll watch the first one and this one back to back." And I said, "Okay, you're going to like it, because even if you don't like cartoons," I said, "the art and the animation in these two movies is so off the fucking chain that it's just visually the closest thing I found that has been this visually stimulating to me, and even comes close, has been a Scanner Darkly.
yeah, that's fair.
With
Because
all
that
the
was so
rotoscoping
yeah.
they did in that, and it's just so out there and so beyond its own thing, and just what they did with that, man, just the way each character has their own friggin' art style
Did
from
you
like that.
see the article about Spider Punk?
No.
Okay,
Did,
so in animation, where there's however many frames a second they do in standard animation,
yeah.
um, they draw movement every 2 cells,
Yeah.
right? So, but with Spider-Punk, I'd have to look it up to be exact, but it was like he moves every 2 seconds. His guitar, or every 2 frames, but his guitar moves every 3 frames, and something else that he does is every 4 frames. So everything about him is moving in a different jumble. So even though like we don't know what that is, it's still he's so different to our eyes because it's different than everything else that's happening.
It's the
Uh,
anarchy of the character in a
Exactly. And they
single
were
frame.
like, and I read that and I was like, dude, that's fucking genius. Because
Yeah.
it's so subtle that you wouldn't just look at it and be like, oh, they did this, but you would feel that difference, and kind of get wrapped up in it because his character was dope. And Daniel Kaluuya was
Hobie
awesome.
is yes. Oh my god. Hobie is so fun. I love like all the newsprint stuff they put behind,
Oh
just like
yeah.
his character design. There's so many things they did visually in this movie. I can't like the only one that I can give you as a definite like impact on me right now is because something my daughter and I talked about, like when Gwen hugs Captain Stacy in the end, and the
Yes.
background morphs like almost 3 times, where it's this like ripple of pastels into this watercolor shade, and the background is still there. You can still tell it's an apartment, but it's not anymore. They just look like they're on a bed of watercolors.
Yeah.
That it actually makes me want to go and hunt down every Spider-Man title that's involved in these movies just to go look at them.
Yeah.
Because like I, they're just so amazing.
Well,
Um,
and it was cool because every now and then you'd have the character would be in one art style, but the background would be in another, and like they'd
yes.
clash and merge and just
Well,
unreal.
and
I
and
Yeah, and
even when they went from universe to universe, even when like say exactly what you were saying. So Miles, even when he gets the bracelet, so he's not glitching, when he's in a different universe, each character doesn't adapt to the world they're in. They hold their own form and shape. Like
yeah,
Gwen, even though she's close to what Miles was, close to the Miles verse anyway, she still looked like it was the same Gwen art wise the entire way through the entire movie. Like Miles was the same Miles
yeah.
the entire way through the entire movie. So like I thought that was really just very well done with that. I love the Crimson Spider. She was hilarious.
That was
Um,
oh shit, who was it?
Dude, there's so many goddamn voices in this movie. It's fucking
It
ridiculous.
was somebody that I didn't expect.
Yeah,
Um,
no, because I did the same thing. I looked it up, and when I saw who it was, I was like, "Get the fuck out of here."
yeah. While you're
Um,
looking that up, though, I love too that the opening scene was about Gwen, and you actually find out why she's this
yes,
moody teenager. Like it's not just like she's just some little
yes,
shit. Like she went through her thing too. And I
yes,
thought that was important. I thought that was really neat to see.
yeah. Jake. Oh, and Jake Johnson coming back as Peter. That was so satisfying.
He needed that, I think. With his daughter.
Yes, I did not. Oh, the daughter. All that shit is so funny. Oh
Yeah.
my god. Oscar Isaac as Miguel O'Hara. I did not
Oh,
pick that voice out. He's brilliant. It was a
he's
great
so
voice.
good.
I
So
did
good.
not pick that out. Jason Schwartzman as Spot.
Yes.
Again,
Who
another one.
I love the character because he starts off so dumb and silly
Yes.
and evolves through through the film to become so much more because really in the opening he's dumb, and if you watch the trailers he
Oh,
just looks like maybe a
yeah.
throwaway character, but it's all about him.
Oh, see, they're still trying to keep this like almost spoilery free for people because I'm looking at. Oh wait, hold on. Peter Parker, Ben Riley.
Yeah, Ben Riley is a Scarlet.
Yeah, Andy Samberg.
That's right. Yeah,
Yeah,
I was like, wait, what? How did I not know that? Like listening to his voice, how did I not pick that up?
yeah. Love Mahershala Ali back as Uncle Aaron. I
Yes,
thought that was nice to have
yes.
him back, dude. The whole Indian Spider-Man
Oh, I
bit,
loved him. Loved it.
dude, hilarious. that was phenomenal. Is he is, if I do
He was
believe,
the cabbie from Deadpool.
yes, he's in another movie um that has, like, I've seen the previews for and I really want to watch. It is called um where did it go? It's God, I'm trying to find it. It takes place during the pandemic. Um and it's like he's got this thing where he like gets a roommate, and um it's just really, it just looks really really funny.
Hmm.
Um if I can find that, I'll mention that. But yeah, he that whole bit that they do there is just so good.
So and that's what another thing that
Um
makes this movie so great is because you have so much like funny, almost silly funny, but there's also
oh
so
yeah.
much heart in this. Like there's so much
Oh.
heart in this. It's incredible. Like it really
um
is.
I love the device they use of like those cannon points, and I love that they call them cannon.
Yeah.
I think that's kind of funny, and a nice little wink to all the comments. Oh, Rachel Dratch as Miss Weber,
Yes.
the thing. Like I picked it up right away. Like the minute
Yes.
I heard, it, I was like, "That's fucking Rachel
But you
Dratch."
could
Like it's
almost look
so
at the
awesome.
character and see Rachel Dratch, which is crazy because I mean, she's so animated, right? Like it's not really looks like her, but at the same time, you're like, yeah, okay. Um,
Um, I
and
loved I
oh,
loved Donald Glover's little
oh, his
like
cameo. Yes,
that
I
was
mentioned that last
so
week too.
great.
The other one that's crazy to me, this comes up is that Peter's mom is played by Lauren Luna Velez from,
Yes.
but she's also Anthony Ramos's mom in Transformers.
Oh really?
Yeah, yeah. I was like, oh shit,
Well now.
she's having a little moment. But
And she's great. She's been around fucking forever
yeah, yeah, I loved her in
too. Like
Dexter. Um,
she was Dr. Gloria Nathan on Oz. Going way back there. The
mhm.
show that I've talked about ad nauseum. Um, but yeah, I can't. There's. It sounds so stupid to say, but there's just there's kind of nothing I can say about this movie. Just go and watch the fucking movie.
It's just yeah, it's just great. It's
Like
great. It's great for anybody.
yeah.
You don't have to love Spider-Man. You don't have to know anything about Spider-Man.
No,
Does it help?
I would
Sure.
say, well, it helps to at least have seen the first movie.
Oh, for sure,
You don't
for
have
sure.
to, yeah, you don't have to know about Spider-Man. In fact, in some ways, it almost helps if you don't know about Spider-Man, because you
Hmm.
could buy into all the fact that there's so many Spider-Men at that point. It's much easier to buy into that and like the whole universe thing. Um, you know, I love I love how they even reference Doctor Strange
Yes,
in it at one
and a
point at
nerdy
the
kid that
yes.
yeah,
Um, yes, and how they incorporated the other Sony property
yeah.
Spider-Man, both Toby. Like I'm like, I thought that was
Venom. They
really really
popped into
good.
the actual. They talked
That
to
was
the
great, Mrs. Chang. Yeah,
yeah
that was hilarious
the Lego
spot when he did
Spider-Man.
that.
Yeah, like there was some great stuff in there.
Oh yeah, they did. Oh, the meme moment, like
Yeah,
en masse, when everybody's like, "Hey," was just phenomenal. They had it. It found a way. This is such a great teen movie.
sure.
If you're a teenager, to watch this, to talk about like angsty teenageism, but then also as a parent, I found myself identifying with the mom and the dad. I mean, obviously, we're in an age where we are going to identify with the mom and the dad more than we are going to identify with Miles Morales,
For
but
sure.
I can get wistful about Miles Morales and go, "Oh, I remember being a teenager and being like that." But then his parents, you're listening to it, and the parents' roles were, I don't want to say meaty, but they're meaningful.
Yes,
Both
for
both,
sure.
both Gwen's dad, Captain Stacy. Um, you may know this. This is I was trying to talk. We were talking through this with my daughter. This might be one to ask ask your son. Um, I wouldn't the wasn't the death of Gwen Stacy for Spider-Man, wouldn't that have been more impactful from the original comic in some ways than her dad's death? like because I remember that was a Spider-Man I bought in reprint, was when she died with the whole Green Goblin thing and everything, and that's what they did in the Tom
Yeah,
Holland, or not Tom
yeah.
Holland, but in
No,
the Andrew
Andrew Garfield.
Garfield's. Um, so I appreciated that. Though, yeah, because those were the ones with Dennis Leary as Captain
Yes.
Stacy, right?
Yep.
Yeah. Um, I almost like it's interesting that they're using his death as like that kind of catalyst touchstone point, and we were trying to make the connections as it comes through, because you're like, okay, if these are these points, then what has Miguel missed, or where has one come? Because you would assume that Uncle Aaron basically plays Uncle Ben, and then we come around to Earth 45, where the spider came from, where you've got now evil Miles, and Uncle Aaron is still alive, and Dad has died. Okay, so that makes sense with why this is this, but who, like, I don't know. I'm just very interested to see how they tie it in, because not that there's loose ends, but there's still questions I have that
Yeah,
I
for
feel
sure.
like I'm like, okay, this is gonna, but yeah, the spot, that whole thing, just the way they made that. Oh, that's another one. Just talk about the art and the style and the way they do that character.
Yeah.
Just when it's, but when it's empty by itself before it has the spots that come back,
Well,
like it
and
just,
then by
it's
the
like
end, when he's
pencil
like this
drawing almost.
jumble of like scribbles, almost like,
Yeah, it looks like something out of Harold and the Big Purple Crayon in a
yeah,
way. Like it's just, um yeah, this is what, just go see this fucking movie if you're
absolutely.
watching and you haven't yet. It is just amazing. Like the only thing it missed from the first one, and I don't know if they just couldn't get him, or if they just said we're not paying Nicolas Cage. But we didn't get Nicolas Cage's Spider Noir.
Was he not in
Wasn't
that
in
last
this book.
shot? He
Nope.
wasn't in that last shot with them.
Oh, was he?
I don't remember. I thought he was, but I could be wrong. I would never trust my memory on anything.
I know. Yeah, with that, maybe he was, and I know Spider Ham was back. That was fun to
Yep.
see.
Yep.
Peter Porker. I remember that. Oh my god.
So,
Um. Yeah, but go see this fucking movie.
yeah. And if you haven't watched
I.
the first one's fantastic too. So like this is
Oh
a
yeah.
step up from the first one, but the first one
Yeah.
was already one of the best Spider-Man movies ever
The
anyways.
first.
So,
This well, that was the thing, is like we keep talking about the visuals. This took the visuals from the first one and amped them up.
yeah.
I remember talking about the first one when we watched it, and it was the same impression. It's
Yeah.
not, there was it wasn't quite the same, because you just had different characters come into one universe. You didn't
Yeah.
have Miles jumping around in different places. Um so it was slightly different, but it was still like just absolutely beautifully done. Like there are moments that you almost like it's rotoscoped to some degree,
Sort of, yeah.
where the animation is done so well that I can't really tell if it's not mocap to some degree,
Yeah.
that they've animated over. Like it's just so, like the character design and the way they move is so well put together. Um but yeah, I love that he's the conversation between Spider-Man and his dad, and like when they're at the collider, and they're just having the conversation, and
Oh,
they,
yeah, yeah. Yeah, and he's like, just go easy on him, you know?
yeah, like that whole like that whole the masked hero talking to the person about like it's been done before. It's not,
Yeah.
but I think this one was done very, very well.
Yeah.
And it took an old kind of trope and plot device, and it didn't feel old or rehashed. Like it felt kind of fresh and new. Like it was really, I absolutely loved this movie. Like you said, like you said, Guardians was a little above this one for you. This, to me, so far, is the best movie I've seen this year. I absolutely loved Guardians. uh that was, again, almost on Ted Lasso scale,
Yeah.
close to a series for me. It was everything I wanted. It was fine. It left doors open, but I absolutely loved it. But this to me was just all around, like, visually it was amazing, the plot was amazing, the scripting was amazing, like, again, even though I'm watching a cartoon, there's moments in this that, between the quality of the voice acting they get and the quality of the animation, like, I almost didn't feel like I was watching an animated film
Mm-hmm.
at some point. It's like, and it's rare that you get that in animation. I'm sure there's some Japanese people that would disagree with me, that if you go, no, 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 watch this anime, watch this, or watch this animated film, you'll get the same kind of vibe. But the only other time I've really, really felt like that, it sounds ridiculous, but is in Toy Story 3, when they're all in the fire pit and they're about to
Oh
go
yeah.
down the
Yeah.
thing, and the toys all look at each other. And in that moment, I was like, holy shit. Like, that's real. Like, this is resignation of death, and this is a kid's cartoon, and these, like this, the emotions that they were able to put on these plastic faces was phenomenal. And it's the same thing with this. Like, Miguel's anger, the way they do it is understood. And then once you get his backstory, you're like, oh,
Yeah.
okay, I get now I get where you're coming from. But it is his backstory, though, and all this stuff that's happening, that's what makes me go, there's something else going on. Because, like, and again, maybe we just don't have enough backstory yet, or they didn't give it to us. And he's the Spider-Man from the future, but all the little temporal rift stuff that he has, that he's got the technology to put together, when he is, in theory, the only Spider-Man with any knowledge of what's actually going on.
Mm-hmm.
you know um I loved, again, just visually, when they do the Spots background story. So good.
Yeah.
Just the way they keep cutting back and forth between, the solid animation style and the black and white pencil drawing. um just yummy, yummy shit. Like, just go see this fucking movie.
Definitely.
That's all there is to it. And with that, you saw something that I was not that interested in until I read a little bit about it, and I'm curious to hear what you have to say.
So I'm going to start off with the Rotten Tomatoes again, because this one is interesting to me too. So 52% from the critics, which is honestly what I would expect for a Transformers movie, but
Yeah,
90% from the audience.
very interesting.
In
Although,
this one, I side with the audience more, although not 90%, but I definitely side with the audience more.
well, it's interesting because I also think, and this movie was going to make money, but I also think this is an interesting one. I like that you're siding with the audience, but it's an interesting one where I, with the reviews that I read initially, I was kind of siding with the critics, even though I hadn't seen it yet, only because, um, it's well, I just think that most of the Transformer movies, aside from the first one and Bumblebee before this, were just so friggin' bad. Um, but they didn't, like, there's a built-in audience for this now.
For sure.
You're not picking up new Transformers people, like,
No,
right
no, no,
now.
no, no.
Like, I mean, Fast and the Furious is picking up, like, kids like my daughter, who are seeing a trailer for Fast 10 and are all of a sudden like, ooh, we've got to go back and watch the others because I want to watch this one. But which I cool. I don't know how we're gonna do that. Um, but yeah, I think the audience reaction to this was going to be good because it was the Transformers audience. I don't think you're gonna get a lot of, like, oh, I hear this Transformers movie is good. Let's go check it out.
I'll tell you this. This is interesting to me, and I wouldn't have expected it. When I watched Spider-Man, nobody in the theater clapped during the film. Like it was an
Really?
amazing film. Everybody loved it, but there wasn't like that audience like uproar. There was 2 or 3 times in this movie where the crowd that we had erupted in applause. That doesn't mean that they were necessarily like great mind blowing moments, but they were moments that you were like waiting for. And when they happened, there was actual applause in the theater, which is crazy to me. I didn't get that
For
in
a
any other.
Transformers movie, you're like,
Right. Uh, so let me tell you this. So the human story in this
yeah,
is what
break it down for us.
what drives the film, because in previous Transformers movie after the first one, you had so much Transformers and robot shit that it wasn't as good and it wasn't as interesting. In this one, you have Anthony Ramos, who does a great job. His drama is all about caring for his brother who has sickle cell anemia, and they're poor. And so he's trying to take care of him. But like realistically, like the three main actors do a great job. So you've got Anthony Ramos. The girl's name is Dominique Fishback. I'm not too familiar with her, but she was really good. And then Pete Davidson played Mirage. And they all did a great job.
So
Mirage was a little
Mirage,
over the top,
but
but
he's a more central character
yes, for
in
sure,
this
because
one.
he is like he is to Anthony Ramos as Bumblebee was to Sam Witwicky in the first one, right? Like
Okay.
except he can talk, obviously, because Pete Davidson. But the other actors in this were really great too. You have Ron Perlman as Optimus Primal.
Okay.
You've got Coleman
Ooh, good
Domingo
casting.
as Unicron and Peter Dinklage as Scourge. And
Oh.
they were all really good. They did a really good job. I think I'm starting to see where Peter Cullen is maybe getting a little long in the tooth. Um, Optimus Prime
Yeah.
sounds like he's 750 years old.
Ugh.
You kind of from his voice, you can't actually believe that he can do action anymore, but he does because he's a CGI robot. But um, you know, it is funny because me and my son walk out of the theater. Um, and we were both completely shocked that we loved it. And as we're driving home, as we start talking about all the things that were wrong with it. Like, and so the thing that I can tell, like, but when we're done talking about it, we still really enjoyed it. Um, the one thing you have to do is just, if you think about canon, anything to do with the Transformers themselves, just throw that shit out the window. Don't even think about it, because if you try and line this up with the Bay universe, it doesn't quite work. If you line it up with Bumblebee, sure, it sort of works, but like it all doesn't quite work cohesively. So you throw that shit out the window. The opening scene is Unicron coming to destroy the planet that the Maximals are on, that the animal dudes are on. But for some
Okay.
reason, this planet out in the middle of nowhere is covered in gorillas, uh, rhinoceri, birds, like, and cheetahs. Like, so all these animals exist on this planet that is not Earth, but just out in space, and they're exactly the same thing. They don't bother to explain that. Just don't bother to explain that at all. So cool. Throw that out, just accept it. Just take that, put it in your back pocket.
Oh,
Fine.
Wheeljack is voiced by Cristo Fernandez.
Yes, he is from Ted Lasso. Danny Rojas. Uh,
Transformers
very obvious.
alive.
Like I looked at my son as
Oh,
soon as
is
he
it?
came up. I was
Yeah.
like, dude, that's Danny Rojas. We've got the Maximals just live on this planet covered in animals, apparently, that are also robots. Fine. They just happen to look exactly like the gorillas on our planet, but sure. Throw that out the window. At one point, Prime meets Optimus Primal, who says, "Oh, I'm both your future and your past," and they're like, "Cool. Let's not ask any questions about that and just accept that that's what happened." His name is Optimus Primal in respect to Optimus Prime, but let's not talk about that. So, like the actual story of the Maximals in the Transformers universe is that Prime left Earth, or sorry, left Cybertron. The next generation came up. They were the Maximals who then came to Earth, but because of the way that they came to the Earth, our Transformers over here were asleep or dormant. These guys came to Earth live, so they are older than Prime, but they've been on Earth active longer. It's like confusing, right? Um, but because of the way that the original Transformers were out cold,
Yeah, no, that
um,
that actually makes sense. That
yeah,
that I would actually buy. That is a very good explanation for that. That
which
the
they
the
don't give in
original
the movie.
Transformer. Are you fucking serious?
They don't like. There's a line. He literally says, "I am both your past and your future."
Because it
Never talk
makes
about it again.
because that actually makes sense. Like, okay, those Transformers came, like you said, they were dormant. Well, the Maximals came while they were not in suspended animation. They didn't
Yeah,
crash land. They landed. Well, they scan. What are they going to find? Fucking animals
exactly.
at that point when they came. So that makes that I.
But they didn't come to our Earth to scan the animals. They were on a completely different planet,
Oh, the
and then they
fuck.
came to Earth. So it's just like you're like, what? Okay, sure, sure, fine. We'll just throw that shit out the window. Don't ask questions. Just go with it. Um, and but other than that, I mean, it there's holes on holes on holes in the movie. If you're looking for them, they're there for sure. And you'd be like, this is stupid. But like one of the things that is interesting, you go to Rotten Tomatoes and you read the critics' reviews, and they're like, it's just another movie about robot aliens fighting. And I'm like, yes, that like I don't know if you're going into Transformers and your critique is that it's just them doing this, then you don't understand Transformers and your review doesn't matter. Like if you go in and you're like, okay, this is the Transformers fighting, and then I have a problem with these things X, Y, and Z, like the things that I just listed, sure, you can give it a lower rating based on that. But if you're just pissed that it's alien robots fighting other alien robots, that dude, that's the Transformers. I'm sorry, like you're not gonna. This isn't gonna be for you.
So I think there's a lot of movies, especially movies, and we're going to see this a lot more going forward. And we've already seen it since with some stuff. And I mean, we're all kind of guilty of it, but I like to call it Endgame syndrome, where now that when you've had this movie like Endgame that has come out, that is a capstone to this 10 years thing, but has so much to say and is more than just a movie, that you're looking for something more in every
Yeah,
kind of one of
yeah,
these movies that there are, when in reality this is just a blockbuster summer action movie. There's nothing that's supposed to be deep about Transformers fucking, you know, Rise of the Beast. It's big robots fighting each other,
yep.
and that's okay. If you like the big robots, have at it. i
And
don't
to
i
be
don't I,
fair, like I said, this one is better with the human story. Like you care a lot more about the people than you do in previous iterations. One thing that's funny is they make a joke because this takes place in 1994, and Anthony Ramos is bumping into Mirage for the first time, and they have a conversation. And like Anthony Ramos says, this is crazy. Like the first time he meets him, and he's like, "Yeah, times are crazy. Like right now, Marky Mark is leaving the Funky Bunch. What the fuck is up with that?" Which is hilarious because Marky Mark is a main character in two of the previous films or three of the previous films. So like there was that, and then at another point, um, Anthony Ramos's character is standing over this hole that opens in the ground, and they're about to go spelunking, and he's like, this is some Indiana Jones type shit, and you're like, yeah, Shia LaBeouf is Indiana Jones, like they have these little things. Um, there's a moment at the very end, like right before the mid credit scene, um, that is great. I don't want to spoil it, but maybe you know what? Fuck it, I will. It sets up GI Joe. It literally sets up like an interconnected Transformers GI Joe potential universe if they wanted. So that was fun. I mean, dude, it's not great. It's not great. Like I said, throw out continuity. If you have questions about it, they're not going to be answered. It's a mess in that regard. But it was fun. The acting was good. The locations were beautiful. When they went to Machu Picchu, Peru. You know, they went to some really cool places. New York looked great for 1994 New York. The soundtrack was dope. It was all great 90s music. You have Cream by Wu-Tang, um, Anything by SWV, Represent by Nas,
oh,
Hypnotized by Big.
Biggie, yeah.
Yeah, Mama Said Knock You Out by LL Cool J, Check the Rhyme by A Tribe Called Quest. Like the soundtrack is dope, like is good. And so like there's a lot of things about it that work if you take it for what it is. And that's, I think, is why I enjoyed it so much. Plus, to bring up an old thing, the Transformers scale is in full effect here, right? Like you've got Transformers, the first live action, and Bumblebee are up there, and then this one's up there. Everything else after this is garbage, but this is definitely better than anything other than Bumblebee in the first one.
Okay.
And the advantage that the first one has, and then that Bumblebee has, when you watch the first one, it's setting up the universe. It doesn't have to answer any questions, and it doesn't have to get anything right.
Right.
Um, with Bumblebee, it's almost like a soft reset. So you've gone back in time.
Yeah.
You can kind of just accept whatever is wrong with the storyline there. So that's where those two films have an advantage over this one. This one's sitting in the middle. So there's all kinds of wonky shit that, like, because you can't, at one point in the newer live action films, the Earth was Unicron, right? Like Unicron was coming out of the Earth in one of the Marky Mark ones.
Oh, wasn't that, yeah, wasn't that the but it wasn't
But
Unicron.
but
Yeah.
Unicron is in this one and is a well done Unicron. Like
The
is proper. Um and Coleman Domingo's dope. Like I love that dude. So him
okay.
as Unicron is fantastic. Um and so like Unicron looks like Unicron. His control over Scourge is great. Like that stuff actually works. Like and the way they're bringing him in works, but it doesn't work with the films down the line. If the Earth is Unicron in any form or fashion, that doesn't work, right? Um, Bumblebee is in this weird, and so much happens, and people see the Transformers doing their thing in this, but in the first Bay film, no one's seen them. Nobody's heard of them. The only thing the government knows is Megatron, who's
Yeah.
in the ice. So they what do they call him? NBE1, non-biological entity one. That's what you have for Megatron in the first film, but they don't know the Transformers exist. Well, the government at the end of this one acknowledges that the Transformers are there and that Anthony and Ramos work with them. So like, yeah, there's holes. Like there's holes everywhere. So you have to throw that shit out and just accept it for what it is. And if they decide that they're going to throw away the Bay films or maybe it's an alternate timeline, do whatever you want with that. That makes this one a little better because you don't have to think down the line about how that doesn't work. Um, and it definitely doesn't not work with the previous film with Bumblebee. So that's fine. It's just the weird things about these guys, like why are there, Earth animals on a completely different planet made out of robots if they've never been to Earth? And then why was Prime not more confused about anything to do with the Maximals if they technically came after him?
Yeah.
But all in all, like I don't think, like I said, it's not a 90% nine for me, but like it's a seven. Like I thought the film was good. If you compare it to the other Transformers, if you put it on the Transformers scale, we're
Gail.
up there near the top. You know what I mean? So um there's nothing I I can't say there's nothing wrong with it, but as an entertaining action blockbuster type film where you just want to watch shit blow up, and have fun with it, it's not that bad. It's okay.
Uh,
Just
you've actually
don't ask the
sold me on this
questions.
movie.
Yeah. Yeah.
You completely
You
sold me on it.
you would enjoy it. Andy would enjoy it. Andrew could tolerate it, I think. Um, he's a more hardcore Transformers fan.
But I think
So
from what you're telling me, I actually think he might enjoy this more than he's enjoyed any other Transformers movie
I would think so.
to this point.
I would think
And
so. I
just
think
I know because of the addition of RC, you've also got Michelle Yao as Air Razor
yeah.
is in there. You've got like there's he's the fan of
The
a lot of the voice
cast
actors.
is great
Yeah.
and really like you've had the problematic things in the other ones, even in the first one, like me and myself were talking about, like how the fuck does Jazz get ripped in half by Megatron, but he doesn't rip it like, and Jazz, dude, Jazz was so racially incorrect in that movie. Like they
Yeah.
just, um, you know,
Jazz was Scatman Crothers in the original cartoon.
yeah,
Which, okay, if you don't want to make him, if you don't want to lean into kind of that, oh, black man sounded kind of voice for jazz, like I'm not even going to bother trying to do Scatman
yeah,
Crothers, but um, like you could have done it a different way. You could have made him urban if you wanted to.
and
like,
not
and
sound just
obviously so,
so, yeah.
yeah, but
Because
it
what,
did,
like
it
when the
was
kids
just
show,
bad.
"What's up, little bitches?" I was like,
Oh
dude,
yeah, you're like,
really? I was like, come on. And so like that was just
uh,
problematic in the first one, anyways. It's funny because the complaint that me and my son had going into the movie is, why does Mirage a Porsche when Jazz was a Porsche, right? Like that whatever. But there's a scene where he's fucking around. And he's like when he's trying to get Anthony Ramos on board, he's like, "Look, man, afterwards I'll let you sell me. You can get the money because that's what you need." And he's like, "I can be this, I can be that." And at one point he turns into a Formula One car, which is his original
that's what Mirage
T1
is.
form.
Yeah.
So it's funny, like they do those things right, and um, there's it's a problematic film, no question.
Yeah.
You know, it's not going to be good if it's a Transformers film, but it wasn't bad. I can tolerate it way more than anything Marky Mark did. Anything after the first film, this is better than. So I enjoyed it. If this keeps the Transformers live action films going and helps them progress a little bit, I'm actually okay with it. I don't know where they go next. To be fair, you got to come up with a story that doesn't totally blow, but um,
So I mean, without spoiling it too much, is the Unicron issue then resolved in this movie? Is he the main protagonist?
Scourge is really the
Or
main protagonist, like at the will of Unicron.
yeah.
They effectively set it up that at least for now, there isn't a way for Unicron to come back. Um, there's always going to be a way to bring it back. They don't kill Unicron. He comes
Right.
through a hole to eat the Earth. They close
Oh,
they
okay.
close said hole before Unicron can come all the way through. So Unicron is stuck
Got it.
out somewhere else. So he's got
Okay.
to find a different way to leap across space to get here to eat us. But you can come up with that device, however you want to.
Interesting.
Um, so yeah, it'll be interesting to see for sure what happens next, if anything. It was nice to see this not be Michael Bay's fingertips all over it. Like, yes, he produced it, but it didn't have those fancy sunset shots of all the cars driving
Yeah.
by, and all the shit you would see in a Bay film is not there. Um, it's still there's still I know they're not real, but there's still almost too much CGI in here. Um,
Yeah.
there's a scene, even you see it in the trailer, where Mirage is driving backwards and the cop is facing him, and he transforms and turns around and just keeps driving.
Yeah.
And I'm
Yeah.
watching, I'm like, but how does he stay at speed? And then I remind myself, I'm like, don't fucking ask. Just don't.
Yeah.
Just don't. You don't need the answer to that question.
You're
Um,
like, I know, you're like trying to do the physics in your head. You're like, okay, even mass times acceleration.
yeah, at
He's
one point, like
moving
you
in
see
this
the wheel
direction.
go around, but it's in the air, and I'm like, that needs to be on the ground. I was like, what are you doing?
Yeah.
But it it was fun. If you like the Transformers at all, I think you'll give it a little more leeway than maybe somebody else would. Like you said, nobody is watching the trailer that's never seen Transformers before and being like,
Yeah.
I need to go see that movie, unless you have kids, unless you're like, I want to show my kids, whatever.
Yeah.
But like, if you're not already into Transformers, there's really not a lot of audience for this. Where like if Avatar: The Way of Water comes out, that could bring in some new people.
Which it is. I started watching it this afternoon, oddly enough.
Yeah, I started it and I got bored and I turned it off.
Eh,
Um,
no, same.
so we'll see. Yeah,
Exactly. Like I literally fell asleep. Like my wife
yeah,
had to wake me up. We were on a break from a lacrosse tournament, and I'm like, okay, we got an hour before we got to go back.
yeah,
I'll watch a little bit of this, and she had to wake
yeah.
me up to go back to the tournament. I was like, you
Yeah,
sons of
I,
bitches.
I I don't want to be the naysayer on it, even though Karen pissed me off. But I'm like, number one, like, just to tangent out real quick before we close up shop for the week. Like, I was like, number one, I don't think it really looks any better yet. I know the underwater stuff is when it's supposed to look great, but like, they don't look real to
Thanks.
me.
Yeah.
Like, that all still looks like CGI. And the problem is that when the first one came out, there was such a gap between what he was doing and everybody else. And now everybody's kind of caught up. It still does look better and smoother and stuff than a lot of stuff, but it's not so far removed from everything else that it's blowing my mind the way the first one did.
The underwater shit that I've seen, it's better than Aquaman. but like
So are most
honestly,
things.
yeah. But I mean, no, but like the hair's not all over the friggin' place. Like,
Yeah.
woof, woof. Um, but yeah, no, same. Like so far, and maybe it was something you're supposed to see in a theater, but it's kind of like my feeling with the first Avatar movie in general. Like I feel like once I sit down, I'm gonna enjoy it,
Hmm.
but I'm not gonna enjoy this movie as much as everybody else who
Yep.
saw it did. Like when once I finally watched Avatar, I remember going, okay, I get why people love this, and I get the technological advance from what this is. I'm like, but this story wasn't that good. This is Dances with Blue Aliens.
Yeah, yeah,
Like
yeah. It
swap,
was
like
Pocahontas slash Dances with Wolves slash, because the story's been done.
yeah, and this wasn't, and Avatar wasn't a great retelling of said
No,
story.
it was fine, but it wasn't, you know.
You know, like
So
again, it it looks beautiful,
yeah,
but I don't, like you said, I don't see it as being so far any prettier than the last one was.
yeah,
Other
yeah.
other than every goddamn thing on the screen is CGI except for the humans when there are humans on the screen. I will say, actually, the one place where I that is the one place where I think it is actually a little bit better, and I think it is going to set a standard. And again, only from what I've watched, and I've only made it through like the first half hour of the movie.
Same.
When you have humans interacting with the Navi in a human setting, the Navi actually almost look like they belong there. Like the CGI is good enough for a completely CGI created uh, character that even though I know the blue aliens aren't real because they just look a little different, they actually look like they fit in the world though,
Hmm.
and it makes sense. Um, Whereas a lot of times there's CGI creatures and they interact with with the human side, and you're like, you could have done it with a green screen and saved your money on the CGI.
Yeah.
Like if that was the level you were going for, like it definitely like. So I actually think it's funny that this is this movie's kind of becoming, I think, one of the best movies for that I've ever seen still to this day, between animated subjects and humans working together.
Who Framed Roger
Who
Rabbit?
Framed Roger Rabbit? Dude, it's
Yeah.
actually, if you go back and watch that
Yep.
movie,
It's great.
um and it's in the green screening or however they did it, especially that was done without CGI, that was
Yeah, I think
more or
they
less
painted it
really
on.
done
I
with,
think I think they took the cells and actually
yeah,
drew it on.
it's done phenomenally well. Like when Bob Hoskins is interacting with
Oh,
with a cartoon object, it, like, I legitimately buy it. Like when he's holding Roger, it looks like he's actually holding Roger.
yeah.
Like it works really well. And that's, I did get this from that. Like when the human kid is jumping onto the helicopter or air transport thing, and then the couple Navi jump on with him, like it looked like that looks real to me. Like
Hmm.
they move and they were getting on real. The When it's all Navi on the screen though, like when they go and meet the new tribe and this and that, honestly, it just looks like a really fancy animated film at that point.
Yep. Yep.
Like it's good. There was some movie I saw where, like, I forget how the interaction comes, but there's like these alien creatures living on a beach somewhere, creatures in another world, that you could tell actually that it was like the setting was not CGI, but that the creatures were all CGI, but they still fit in and interacted with the world that they were in, like the real world, and the mocap that they did for that was done really, really well. That I, there's We've hit the point where it's got to be kind of outstanding for me to really kind of take
Hmm.
notice of that. Where, like, it's like you said, everything else is so on a level playing field right now when it comes to this, that the only thing that's going to change it up a little bit, that's going to be a game changer, is with the backgrounds, what they're doing now with the
Mm-hmm.
live animated backgrounds, so the actors are acting in them instead of doing a green screen and
Yeah,
CGIing in
like
it
they did with
later.
Mandalorian and stuff. Yeah,
Exactly, like the way they're doing that. I think that's going to be a game changer, because it's they've also found, John Favreau talked about this, that's also an incredibly huge money saver
yeah,
for them
yeah.
when they're filming this, because all they have to do once those backgrounds are projected, they just have to go in and clean the shit up a little bit
Mm-hmm.
with some CGI. It's like lightweight CGI editing just to make it, a little prettier, but you're no longer having to build an entire background. And I think that is going to bode incredibly well for science fiction and fantasy
Yeah, for sure,
television
for sure.
moving forward, because all of a sudden, because that's always been like, again, to call back, like when you talk about the Dune movies, you know, the original Dune movie, well acted, well put together, just way too short, and was very much a subject of its times between the soundtrack and everything else. The next kind of best one, if you will, was the Sci-Fi Network's, you know, 3-part miniseries. I think they did. So you
Mm-hmm.
got a nice expansion on the story, but it was Sci-Fi Network budget. Like there
Yeah,
was a lot of stuff that looked like it was like foam that was cut out
yeah, yeah,
and
yeah.
painted. It's very, a lot of the style that they chose for like the emperors, like the real, like some of the expensive scenes were like very simple shaped it was like all triangles and like they put it together like for shit they bought at Michael's the night before.
Right.
Um, and then this new one, and I'm looking forward for the second movie. I know you guys, the episode you guys covered it really well with Dude. Um,
With Steph, no, not Stephanie. I keep saying,
well, yeah, no, it
no, it
wasn't
wasn't the.
Leah.
We made the same mistake when we talked about it too. I edited it so I
Brain.
didn't look like a total idiot.
But anyway, yeah,
Yeah,
like they hit everything on the head with that one. I am incredibly looking forward to the second movie, because I
yeah.
loved what they've done with it so far.
I like it. It's
The
beautiful.
first
It's
one.
just slow, and you have to accept that.
Yeah,
I think Dune
exactly.
actually kind of like Transformers works better if you are into the lore because it's so slow and there's so much going on,
Yeah.
like politically, like everything, all the movement in Dune is like machinations in the background. It's all story and stuff to chew on. It's not action, and so it's hard to put into a film.
Yeah, and again, I'm also like, I really liked the '80s Dune with Kyle MacLachlan, and
Mm-hmm.
I thought it was really good. Having read a few of the novels, I understand
Yeah, yeah,
what people like. I get the complaints about it, but I also look at that and go, well, the fuck were you gonna do in one movie?
yeah, yeah. It has to be more than
Like
one. Like Dune
like
cannot be
it's
a 2 hour film or even a 3 hour
yeah,
film.
no. Dune is a perfect example of something that, given a good enough budget, would have made an excellent like HBO or Netflix
Yes,
series. Give me
yeah.
like
I
two
think we said
seasons
that
at
too.
13 episodes
Yeah,
apiece.
yeah.
This, and I'm hoping, we still don't know because they haven't given enough away, unless they've announced it and I just missed it, that it is going to be 3 movies. I do hope it is a trilogy, that it's not just Dune part 1 and part 2. I do hope there is a part 3. Because there is, if they're taking, uh, so this next movie, depending on how much they want to encompass with what they're showing us, with what they've been given so far, as how much depth and matter they're going to solve in here, there's a lot that's going to happen in this next movie with Paul in the desert with the
Mm-hmm.
Fremen, but there's also so much that goes on behind the scenes with the breaking down of House Atreides, Fade Routha, all everything that the Harkonnens have going on, and with the Emperor, and the beginning of the spice production going down and all that. Like there's so much political intrigue kind of shit that's about to go on and happen,
Mm-hmm.
that it'll be interesting to see how much they do leave in, and how much they don't. And I think we're gonna get a lot. I think it's I'm just ready for it. I'm
Yeah.
stoked on it.
Yep. I think it's gonna be dope. It's I
That's all.
guess it's slow, but it'll be
Yeah.
beautiful and it'll be good.
But like you said, if you know it's slow going into it, like
It helps.
yeah, you're gonna if you know it's slow, because especially if you've read the books, you know it's gonna be slow because you're looking at a book series that's like 800 pages a piece minimum on
Mm-hmm.
these, and that's and with that,
Yes. I actually think I'm gonna have to do a little bit of editing, but this is the longest episode like ever. I think it'll actually be a pretty reasonably length episode. So
yeah,
with that, I will say to everybody at home, thank you for watching. If you're listening to the podcast that Pete never posts, thank you for listening.
I'll do it eventually. We'll see.
Get there. And
This is a YouTube show now, and kudos to you for doing that and for what it's become.
Yeah.
It's impressive, and I love it. But it's become it's a whole different animal now.
we evolved, man.
And it's awesome. I fucking love it.
Yeah, we're all grown up. We're big kids now. We're not, but we're also old kids because we're not cool enough for TikTok. So like, we're just we're like the Facebook of, So,
No shit, right?
yeah. So with that, have a great week, and I have no idea what's going to happen next week, what we're going to watch, but we will catch you next week.
Peace.